Okay, so let's talk about blended learning just for a moment and think about what we really mean by that. There are lots of opinions. I think if you walk around an exhibition, you could be forgiven for mistaking blended learning as purely being e-learning added to other interventions that you're offering your staff. We would say that blended learning is more than that though. It is a true blend of different learning interventions that are delivered to your population of people in a way that it feels like one experience. So it's not just that I do some face-to-face training one day and then another day I do a piece of e-learning, and those two things would be completely disconnected and have different styling, maybe different branding, certainly different language being used. I don't think blended learning is that. Blended learning is me as a user, as a learner, maybe being on a face-to-face course on one day, but the next day or a week or 2 weeks later, whatever it is, if I do another intervention, whether that's e-learning or whether that's virtual classroom, whether it's supporting resources, then it all needs to hang together and be a continuous learning experience rather than a little piece of something over here and a little piece of something over there. So what we endeavour to do is to create learner journeys that take people in and out of different interventions, but each of those interventions really have the same feel, style, client's brand, all of that, so it really hangs together. The language matches whether I'm in a face-to-face piece or whether I'm doing some technology-led learning. And then we would say that blended learning would operate across three key areas. They're portrayed here really. People talk about the 70-20-10 and think about the predominance in the way we learn, that maybe 10% of our learning is kind of that traditional formal learning, a classroom style, we might say didactic in part, learning which we experienced at school, through to experiential learning where people are much more involved and they're engaged in an interface mentally and actively with the learning. So that whole 10% piece, a workshop style of intervention would be the way people learn a small amount effectively of what they learn across their working life experience. The 20% piece would be the supported learning, so people still being provided the learning, but they're helping themselves, they're doing it at the point in time that works for them. So it's the provision of learning that people can tap into when they need it. It's the provision of learning that is easily accessible and therefore often is kind of technology-led, but I wouldn't say exclusively so. Supported learning could be, for example, like an ILM accredited assessment, so that the individuals have to go away and work on an assignment and have that assignment marked. That would, for me, fall under the supported learning piece. It could be coaching. We would put mentoring and coaching into that supported learning piece as well. And clearly e-learning, which is a major part, a major tool within our world and our time in reaching out to learners and providing them learning that they take themselves. We support them in their learning. And then the final piece here, the 70% idea, is that most of our learning actually happens in a real social way or an informal way. It's that thing that we overhear in the office that we learn. We don't necessarily register it as a learning experience, but we would see it as something that we would remember next time round and we would have learned from it. It's a bit like seeing somebody walk outside and stand in a great big puddle and you realise that puddle is deeper than you thought it looked. Next time you're in that spot, you'll go around that puddle because you've learned that. You don't see it as a learning experience, you wouldn't log it in a learning log somewhere, but informally, socially, you've picked up on that and you've developed your own practice on the basis of that. So that's the idea of 70% learning. That's the biggest part of our learning happens in that way. We would never call it a learning experience. So, so what we do at iManage is we help facilitate that. So we might provide face-to-face training, workshop style intervention with the 10%, e-learning coaching, supported learning assignments, resources in that whole 20% piece. But then we have a social learning tool as well, thisworkwell.com, that helps string that together, helps organisations to share what's worked well, so that we're learning on the theories of success rather than basing our learning on the theories of failure, and hang that whole piece together as a true blended solution, and taking people really through a journey in their learning experience.